Hey guys, so today I'm here with an overview of what all is new in the iPad 2. There's a lot of people out there, I'm sure probably you might be one of them, who are considering perhaps buying the iPad 2 as your first iPad, or you have the original iPad and you're like, well, is this worth it or not? So I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the new features and help you make your own minds up about that. So the first thing you'll notice is that it now comes in two colors. So I have the white model right here. Of course, you can still get in the exact same black as before. It'll look very similar from the front. However, if you want to spice it up a little bit, you can pick it up in white. Now, in renders and pictures and that sort of thing, the white one looks pretty bad. However, in person, I'm really a fan of it. I think it looks very nice, especially when you flip it over. It goes really nicely with the aluminum back finish. Of course, though, this one is still going to be up to your preference, whether you want to go ahead and get something that's I'd say white's probably a little bit better with fingerprints. I mean, you really can't see them compared to the black. But again, that's just going to be entirely up to what you like. But if you're interested in getting the white, I would have no problems with it. Everything looks put together right. It looks pretty nice in person. So in addition to that, there also is a new 3G model. So in addition to the same 16, 32, and 64 gigabyte capacities and Wi-Fi and 3G, you can now pick 3G for AT&T or various GSM's networks around the world, or you can pick it up for CDMA, which is primarily used in the United States for Verizon Wireless. So you do have the options there if you're interested in getting 3G for your tablet. Now moving on, there are also a couple of new major new features in cameras. So of course you have a front-facing VGA camera. Now that's pretty much going to be the exact same camera from the iPhone 4 and the iPod Touch 4th generation. You can expect okay quality. Obviously it's not going to be amazing, but for FaceTime and that sort of thing it's going to be great. Speaking of FaceTime, of course the iPad 2 does come with FaceTime. FaceTime, if you're not aware already, is just an app for the iPhone, iPod, Mac, and the iPad 2 that allows you to just video chat. So it works really quite nicely. It's very smooth, very seamless experience, although do keep in mind that you will need to stay on Wi-Fi to use FaceTime. So if we flip the iPad over on the back here, you'll find that there are a couple of new features here. So most notably, you'll find another camera. This is going to be a 720p rear-facing camera. And it's actually, again, this is going to be pretty much the exact same camera from the iPod Touch 4th generation. AKA, pretty decent for video as long as you're in really good light. And that's about the best thing I can say. This camera gets really, really dramatically worse when it gets, in standard lighting. It's just not very good at all. However, like I said, guys, you're not going to be wanting to use an iPad as a camera. This thing is way too big and heavy to hold out, and use as a camera. It just kind of looks a little silly. So for FaceTime, that sort of thing, that's going to work fine. Now while we're on the back, I'll go ahead and show you guys here. There also is a new speaker. So you guys can see right there, there's a speaker on the bottom. This actually works really well. I was surprised. The audio quality from the iPad 2 is really, really quite exceptional. Of course, it's not going to go blow anyone away, but as far as a tablet goes, this is plenty of sound. Absolutely great for movies, music, playing games, and all that sort of thing. Something really, really impressive with the iPad 2 is the thinness. This is extremely thin. In fact, if I pull in an iPod Touch 4th generation, you'll see that it's even thinner than that, although do keep in mind that with the case off, they're going to be about the same. The iPod might be a tiny bit thinner, but the iPad 2 is just absolutely crazy thin. It's thinner than an iPhone 4 and much thinner than the original iPad. Now what this is going to do, of course, you think, well, tablets, who cares about the thinness. However, that's a really big deal for the iPad. Of course, when you're holding it like this, it's nice and lightweight, and it feels very, very good in the hand. As it's just a nice, smooth finish. So you can just hold it there, do whatever you type. So while it kind of seems like a little bit of a, a small thing, that's actually one of my favorite things about the iPad 2. It feels great in the hand, and it really works well. Now moving on from that, there are only a couple of major other things. As far as the UI goes, exact same as on the iPad 1. So, iOS is still here. You can still go through your apps. Of course, you do have rotation, so you can do it however you like. However, there are a couple of improvements inside the iPad. So the first one is that there is now a dual-core 1 gigahertz Apple A5 processor. What this means in non-technical terms, this thing is fast. So you can go ahead and view websites really quickly, play really nice apps. In fact, some of the games on the iPad 2 are really going to look great. There are some really key improvements that Apple has made as far as in the graphics department. So games are going to look great. You've got also additional RAM and a gyroscope, which will make those motion control games a little bit better. And of course, even in this thinner package, you still have the same really impressive 10-hour battery life. In fact, I've had this since yesterday. Haven't even plugged it in once. It came with like 90% charge. Been playing around with it for several hours now. It's still at 65%. So battery life is not going to be an issue as far as I can tell on the iPad 2. Anyway, guys, that's about it for the the new different things as far as the iPad 2 compared to the iPad 1. Now, whether it's worth the upgrade, it's kind of hard to say. If you already have an iPad 1, your iPad's not suddenly an obsolete piece of junk. It's still a great tablet, and the iPad 2 just refines it. It just adds some nice new features that are nice to have if you can afford to to sell your iPad or upgrade. However, if you can't, don't really worry too much. This is nice, but it's not a 100% U-turn that's just absolutely stunning and all that kind of stuff. It's a really nice piece of tech, but just not a absolute must-have gadget.